I'm Stephanie, 34, a single mom and nurse with an amazing 8-year-old son named Logan. We're incredibly close, probably because for years it's been just the two of us against the world. My relationship with my parents and younger brother Noah has always been strained. I've spent my whole life feeling like the second best child in my family, always in my brother's shadow. But when they skipped Logan's birthday party, then demanded thousands for Noah's graduation, that was my breaking point. Before I dive into this family drama, where are you watching from today? Hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to deal with family playing favorites. And stick around to see how $1 made my biggest statement ever. Growing up in Meadowbrook Estates, a middle-class suburban neighborhood with neat lawns and two-car garages, I always knew something wasn't quite right with how my family operated. My parents, Margaret and Richard, had 2 children, me and my brother Noah, who's 5 years younger. From the earliest memories I have, the difference in how we were treated was painfully obvious. When I was 10 and Noah was 5, he received a brand new bike with all the accessories for his birthday. For my birthday that same year, I got a set of educational books. Don't get me wrong, I loved reading, but the disparity in enthusiasm and expenditure was impossible to miss, even for a child. My mother spent weeks planning Noah's parties, sending out custom invitations, and ordering specialty cakes. Mine were afterthoughts, usually hastily arranged days before. School achievements highlighted this pattern even more clearly. I maintained straight, as throughout high school, made debate team captain, and even won a regional science competition. For each accomplishment, my parents' response was lukewarm at best. "That's nice, Stephanie," my father would say without looking up from his newspaper. But Noah's baseball games? They never missed a single one. My mother volunteered as team mom, and my father helped coach. Their calendars revolved around his schedule. My high school graduation should have been a day of celebration. I was valedictorian, an achievement I'd worked incredibly hard for. That morning, I practiced my speech in front of the bathroom mirror, imagining my parents' proud faces in the audience. The reality was quite different. They arrived late to the ceremony, missed half my speech, and rushed the obligatory photos afterward because they needed to prepare for Noah's baseball tournament that weekend. The contrast became even more stark when Noah graduated high school 4 years later. He had decent grades, but nothing exceptional. Yet my parents rented out the local country club for his graduation party, invited over 100 people, and splurged on a professional photographer. During that party, I overheard my mother telling her friends, "We're just so proud of everything he's accomplished," while I served drinks to guests, invisible as always. College years amplified the favoritism to new levels. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through nursing school. My parents contributed a token amount toward my tuition the first year, then nothing after that, claiming finances were tight. Meanwhile, Noah attended an expensive private university fully funded by our parents. He never worked a day during his college experience. During my final year of nursing school, I met James at a coffee shop near the hospital, where I was doing my clinical rotations. He was charming, attentive, and seemed like everything I'd been looking for. Our relationship moved quickly, too quickly in retrospect. 6 months in, I discovered I was pregnant. When I told James, his face went blank. 2 weeks later, he was gone. No explanation, just a hastily scribbled note saying he wasn't ready for this responsibility. I was 7 months pregnant and terrified when I finally gathered the courage to tell my parents. Their disappointment was palpable. "How could you be so irresponsible, Stephanie?" my mother asked, shaking her head. "You've always been such a sensible girl." My father simply sighed deeply and walked out of the room. There were no offers of help, no words of encouragement that we'd figure this out together. Just disappointment and judgment. Those final months of pregnancy while completing my nursing degree were the hardest of my life. I studied between bouts of nausea, took my finals with my belly pressing against the desk, and walked across the graduation stage 8.5 months pregnant, my parents sitting stiffly in the audience. No celebration followed. Logan was born 2 weeks after graduation, a beautiful, perfect baby boy with a dusting of blonde hair and bright blue eyes. My mother visited briefly in the hospital, bringing a small gift and offering surface-level congratulations. My father came once, standing awkwardly at the foot of the bed for 15 minutes before claiming he needed to get back to work. Neither offered to help when I brought Logan home to my tiny apartment. The contrast between their response to my life event versus anything Noah did was crushing. When Noah made the dean's list his sophomore year, the only time during his college career, my parents took him on a weekend trip to celebrate. When I gave birth to their only grandchild, I received a plant and awkward silence. Those early years with Logan were a beautiful struggle. I completed my nursing certification while caring for an infant, often studying after he fell asleep, surviving on minimal sleep and maximum coffee. We developed the kind of bond that only comes from being each other's whole world. His first smile, first word, first steps. These precious milestones were witnessed by me alone, captured in photos I sent to family members who responded with polite but disinterested texts. By the time Logan was 3, I had secured a steady position as a pediatric nurse at Memorial Hospital, with benefits and reasonable hours. We moved to a better apartment, in a safer neighborhood with good schools. I managed to build a stable life for us, no thanks to my family. My parents visited perhaps twice a year, stilted interactions where they seemed more like distant acquaintances than grandparents. All the while, Noah continued to be the golden child. His college graduation was treated like a royal coronation. His first apartment was furnished with family heirlooms and new purchases courtesy of our parents. His first job interview warranted a shopping trip with Mom for the perfect suit. Through it all, I kept reaching out, sending photos of Logan, extending invitations for birthdays and holidays, trying to build the family connection I desperately wanted for my son. The responses were always the same: polite excuses and rain-check promises that never materialized. By the time Logan was approaching his 8th birthday, I had finally achieved financial stability. I wasn't wealthy by any means, but we were comfortable. I could afford occasional treats and small luxuries. More importantly, I had developed confidence in my parenting and in my worth that wasn't dependent on my family's validation. Or so I thought, until Logan's birthday party revealed just how deep those childhood wounds still were. Logan had been looking forward to his 8th birthday for months. From the moment he turned 7, he began a countdown, regularly announcing to anyone who would listen, "I'm going to be 8 soon." His enthusiasm only grew as the date approached. He'd decided on a superhero theme, with Spider-Man as the centerpiece, his current obsession. I wanted to make this birthday special. Previous years had been modest celebrations, a small cake, a few friends from daycare or school, nothing elaborate. But Logan was old enough now to remember his birthdays, and I had some extra savings set aside. 3 months before his birthday, I booked a small recreation room at the local community center, ordered customized Spider-Man invitations, and began collecting decorations. Logan sat at our kitchen table one evening, his tongue poking out in concentration as he carefully wrote names on each invitation. When he reached the ones for his grandparents and Uncle Noah, he looked up at me with bright eyes. "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa will really come this time?" he asked, a mixture of hope and doubt in his voice that broke my heart. "I hope so, sweetheart. We're giving them plenty of notice," I replied, trying to sound positive while managing expectations. I sent the invitations 6 weeks in advance. My mother texted back almost immediately. "We've marked our calendars. Noah might come too." I felt a surge of hope. Maybe this would be different. Maybe they'd finally make Logan a priority. Over the following weeks, Logan's excitement built to nearly unbearable levels. He created elaborate drawings of how he wanted the party to look. He made lists of games to play. He talked endlessly about showing his grandparents his new Spider-Man moves. "Grandma hasn't seen how high I can jump now," he told me one night as I tucked him in. "And I want to show Grandpa my science project from school. He's going to think it's so cool." The Wednesday before Saturday's party, I confirmed with all the parents of Logan's friends. Then I texted my mother, "Just confirming you, Dad and Noah are still coming to Logan's party on Saturday at 2 p.m.? "Yes, we'll be there," came the reply. I showed Logan the message, and his face lit up with pure joy. Friday afternoon, the day before the party, I was at the grocery store picking up last-minute supplies when my phone buzzed with a text. It was from my mother's number, but the message started with, "Hi Stephanie, it's Dad." My father rarely texted me directly. "Something's come up with Noah's baseball league. He's got an important game tomorrow and we promised we'd be there to support him. Won't be able to make Logan's party after all. Send the boy our love." I stood frozen in the middle of the baking aisle, shoppers moving around me as I stared at the message. Noah's baseball league. Noah was 29 years old and played in a casual weekend amateur league. This wasn't a championship game or special event. It was a regular season game in an adult recreational league. My hands shook as I typed a reply. "Logan has been looking forward to seeing you for weeks. The party is only 2 hours. Could you come after the game?" The response came quickly. "Game's at 3. Won't work with timing. We'll make it up to him next time." Next time. The empty promise I'd heard repeatedly throughout Logan's life. I finished my shopping in a daze, unsure how I was going to tell my son that, once again, his grandparents had chosen his uncle over him. When I got home, Logan was bouncing with excitement, showing Taylor, my best friend who was watching him, his party outfit for the next day. "Look, Mom, I'm wearing my Spider-Man shirt but also a button-up shirt over it because Grandpa always says boys should dress nice for important things." My heart sank. Taylor caught my expression and gave me a questioning look. I shook my head slightly, mouthing later. After dinner, when Logan was taking his bath, I told Taylor about the text. "Are you kidding me?" she hissed, outrage clear on her face. "A grown man's recreational baseball game? Over their only grandchild's birthday?" "I have to tell him tonight," I said, fighting back tears. "I can't let him wake up tomorrow expecting them to come." Telling Logan was as awful as I'd anticipated. I sat on the edge of his bed, trying to find the gentlest words possible, but there's no way to soften such a blow. "Sweetie, I got a message from Grandpa today. They won't be able to make it to your party tomorrow after all." His face fell immediately. "Why not? Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby, absolutely not," I assured him quickly. "Uncle Noah has a baseball game, and they promised they'd go to that." Logan was quiet for a moment, processing. Then his eyes welled up with tears. "But my party is special. It only happens once. Uncle Noah has baseball games all the time." I pulled him into my arms as he began to sob, his small body shaking against mine. I had no good explanation to offer, no way to make this make sense to an 8-year-old, when it made no sense to me either. "I made them special thank you cards," he whispered against my shoulder. "I practiced my Spider-Man jump for Grandpa." I held him until he fell asleep, exhausted from crying. Then I went to my own room and finally let my own tears fall, a mixture of heartbreak for my son and fury at my family. The next morning, Logan was subdued. The bright excitement that had animated him for weeks was dimmed. He picked at his special birthday pancakes and didn't even comment when I added extra chocolate chips. "Maybe we should cancel the party," he suggested in a small voice. "Maybe nobody else will come either." "Your friends are all coming," I assured him. "And Taylor will be there. And Mrs. Rodriguez from next door. Lots of people who love you will be there." He nodded, unconvinced. Taylor arrived early to help set up, bringing an additional Spider-Man decoration she'd found, a large banner with Logan's name custom printed on it. Slowly, as we transformed the community room with red and blue decorations, Logan began to perk up. When his friends started arriving, genuine smiles replaced his forced ones. By the time we brought out the cake, a Spider-Man creation I'd stayed up until 1 a.m. finishing, he was laughing and enjoying himself. During a quiet moment while the kids were playing a game, Logan sidled up to me. "Mom, why doesn't Grandma and Grandpa love me like they love Uncle Noah?" he asked quietly. The question felt like a physical blow. I knelt down to his level, taking his hands in mine. "Oh, sweetheart, they do love you. They just don't always show it in the right ways. And that's their mistake. Not anything wrong with you." He nodded seriously, then ran off to rejoin his friends. But the question lingered in my mind for the rest of the party. That evening, after everyone had gone home and Logan was playing with his new toys, I checked social media. There, on my mother's page, were photos from the day Noah, in his baseball uniform, my parents cheering from the stands, all of them getting ice cream afterward. The caption read, "Family comes first. So proud of our boy." The rage I felt in that moment was unlike anything I'd experienced before. With shaking hands, I typed out a text to my mother. "I saw your photos from today. While you were watching a grown man play a casual baseball game, your grandson cried himself to sleep last night because his grandparents broke their promise to him. Again, Logan asked me why you don't love him like you love Noah. I had no answer for him because I've been asking myself the same question my entire life." The response came an hour later. "You're being dramatic as usual, Stephanie. He's just a kid. He'll get over it. Family comes first. You know that. Family comes first." The words echoed in my head as I realized the truth. In their minds, only Noah counted as family. Logan and I were afterthoughts, obligations to be dealt with when convenient and discarded when not. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I went into Logan's room, where he was sleeping peacefully surrounded by his new Spider-Man toys, and made a silent promise. I would never again allow my family to make him feel less than worthy of love. The Monday after Logan's birthday party, I made a decision that was both difficult and liberating. I would significantly limit our contact with my family. This wasn't a dramatic declaration or ultimatum. I simply stopped initiating contact and responded to their occasional messages with brief, polite replies that didn't invite further conversation. When my mother texted to ask if Logan had enjoyed his party, I replied with a simple, "Yes, he had fun with his friends." No photos, no details, no opening for further discussion. When my father sent a belated birthday card with $20 inside 2 weeks later, I had Logan write a short thank you note that I mailed without adding any personal message of my own. Logan, perceptive as always, noticed the change. "How come we don't talk to Grandma and Grandpa much anymore?" he asked one evening as I was helping him with homework. I took a deep breath, considering my response carefully. "Sometimes, when people don't treat us with respect, we need to take a little space from them," I explained. "It doesn't mean we don't love them, or that they don't love us. It just means we're taking care of ourselves." He nodded thoughtfully. "Like when I stopped playing with Ethan at recess because he kept breaking my toys and not saying sorry?" "Something like that," I agreed, impressed by his understanding. "We can still talk to them and see them sometimes, but maybe not as often for a while." As the weeks passed, I focused on strengthening what Taylor had started calling our chosen family, the people who consistently showed up for Logan and me, who demonstrated their care through actions rather than empty words. Taylor officially became Aunt Taylor to Logan, a title she embraced wholeheartedly. She came over for dinner every Wednesday, never missed our weekend outings to the park, and stepped up whenever I needed support. When Logan had a minor asthma attack in May and I had to rush him to the ER, Taylor was there within 30 minutes, bringing comfortable clothes for both of us and staying until he was discharged. My coworker, Mia, a fellow single mom with a daughter a year older than Logan, became another steady presence in our lives. Our children got along wonderfully, and we started alternating Friday night dinners at each other's apartments. She understood the complicated family dynamics without judgment, offering practical advice from someone who'd navigated similar waters. "You're doing the right thing," she assured me one evening after Logan and her daughter Emma had gone to play in Emma's room. "Setting boundaries isn't punishing them. It's protecting yourself and your son." When Thanksgiving approached, my mother called with the annual invitation to dinner. In previous years, I had always accepted despite knowing how uncomfortable these gatherings were. Logan and I squeezed in as obvious afterthoughts, Noah dominating the conversation, my parents barely engaging with their grandson. This year, I declined. "We've made other plans," I said simply. "But thank you for the invitation." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "What other plans?" my mother asked, genuine surprise in her voice that we might have alternatives. "Friends from work are hosting a Thanksgiving potluck," I explained, not elaborating that these friends from work were Taylor, Mia, and a few other nurses who had become my support system. "Well, I suppose if you'd rather spend the holiday with strangers than your own family," she trailed off, the guilt trip hanging in the air between us. They're not strangers, Mom. They're people who consistently show up for Logan and me. I kept my voice neutral, stating a fact rather than making an accusation. For Christmas, I sent gift cards to my parents and Noah, and they sent packages for Logan. Instead of the usual strained dinner at their house, Logan and I had a quiet Christmas morning at home, then spent the afternoon with Taylor and her boyfriend Derek, who dressed as Santa and brought Logan the exact Spider-Man action figure he'd been wanting for months. What surprised me most during these months of distance was how little my family seemed to notice or care. My mother's texts became less frequent, but didn't show any real concern about our diminished relationship. My father called exactly twice, once about a family medical history form he needed me to fill out, and once because he'd received mail for me at their address. Noah, as usual, remained oblivious, sending the occasional generic, "How's it going?" text that required no real engagement. Their apparent lack of concern only confirmed I'd made the right decision. The anticipated guilt never materialized. Instead, I felt increasingly peaceful as I realized how much energy I'd been expending trying to win approval from people who were constitutionally incapable of giving it. "You seem different," Mia observed one day as we watched our children on the playground. "More confident." "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I've been carrying this weight for so long I didn't even notice it anymore. And now it's gone." Logan, too, seemed to be thriving in our new normal. Without the constant disappointment of canceled visits and broken promises, he focused on the relationships that were consistent and positive in his life. He stopped asking when we would see his grandparents, and instead looked forward to weekend adventures with our chosen family. When one of his teachers asked the class to draw their families for a school project, Logan created a colorful picture that included me, Taylor, Mia, and Emma, our neighbors the Rodriguezes, and even Derek. His grandparents and Noah were noticeably absent. When I asked him about it, he shrugged. "You said family is the people who show up and love you no matter what," he explained matter-of-factly. "These are the people who do that." Out of the mouths of babes, the peaceful months passed, with minimal family drama, a welcome respite after years of emotional turmoil. I found myself sleeping better, laughing more, and feeling increasingly comfortable in my own skin. My supervisor at work commented on my improved performance and suggested I consider applying for an upcoming charge nurse position. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was thriving rather than just surviving. I was building a life centered around genuine connections rather than obligatory relationships that left me feeling drained and diminished. I knew, of course, that this period of peaceful distance couldn't last forever. Sooner or later, something would force our family dynamics back to the forefront. What I didn't anticipate was just how spectacularly it would happen. It was a Tuesday evening in April. Logan was finishing his homework at the kitchen table while I prepared dinner, a simple pasta dish that was his favorite. The familiar chime of my phone barely registered until I glanced at the screen and saw my mother's name. She rarely called on weeknights. With a sense of foreboding, I answered. "Hello? Stephanie, hello." My mother's voice had that artificially bright quality it took on when she wanted something. "How are you? How's Logan?" "We're fine," I replied cautiously. "Logan's doing well in school. How are you and Dad?" "Oh, we're just wonderful. So busy. You know how it is." She paused, then continued with forced casualness. "Actually, we have some exciting news. Noah is graduating from his MBA program next month. With honors." "That's great," I said, genuinely happy for my brother, despite our complicated relationship. "Tell him congratulations from us." "Yes, well, that's partly why I'm calling." Another pause. "We're planning quite a celebration for him. We've booked the Riverside Hotel's banquet room. You know, where Cousin Emily had her wedding reception? It's going to be a proper event to mark such a significant achievement." I made an encouraging noise, already sensing where this was heading. "The thing is, Stephanie, these venues aren't cheap. And with the catering and the open bar and everything else," she took a deep breath, "we're expecting family members to contribute toward the costs. Your share would be $2,200. I nearly dropped the phone. $2,200? Mom, that's a lot of money. Well, It's what family does for each other, Stephanie. Her voice took on a slight edge. We all pitch in for important milestones. And Noah's graduation is certainly a milestone worth celebrating properly. My mind immediately flashed to Logan's birthday party, to his tears when they canceled, to the modest celebration we'd had without them. I don't know, Mom. That's a significant amount for me right now. I stirred the pasta sauce with more force than necessary. And honestly, after what happened with Logan's birthday— Oh, for heaven's sake, she interrupted. Are you still upset about that? That was just a child's party, Stephanie. This is a significant life achievement we're talking about. Just a child's party. Her dismissal of Logan's feelings hit me like a physical blow. Logan is your grandson, I said quietly. His feelings matter too. Of course they do, she replied impatiently. Nobody's saying they don't. But surely you understand the difference between a child's birthday and a master's degree graduation. What I understand is that you've consistently prioritized Noah over both me and Logan. My mother sighed heavily. This isn't about that at all. Everyone in the family is contributing. Aunt Susan, Uncle Robert, even Cousin Emily. Are you really going to be the only one who refuses to support your brother? I need to think about it, I said finally, unwilling to commit either way during this conversation. Well, don't think too long. The venue needs final numbers by next week. Her tone softened slightly. You've always been difficult about family obligations, Stephanie. I had hoped that as you matured, you'd outgrow this resistance. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, mind racing. Taylor was my first call. $2,000? She exclaimed when I told her. For a party he probably doesn't even want? That's insane. It's $2,200 actually, I corrected. And knowing Noah, he probably does want it. He's always enjoyed being the center of attention. What are you going to do? I don't know. I lowered my voice so Logan wouldn't hear from the living room where he was now watching TV. Part of me wants to just pay it to avoid the drama, but it feels so wrong. Especially after they couldn't even show up for an hour at Logan's birthday. The next day at work, I sought out Mia during our lunch break. They're trying to manipulate you, she said bluntly after I explained the situation. If you give in now, they'll know they can always get what they want by pushing your guilt buttons. But if I don't, I'm the bad guy. Again, Mia shrugged. From what you've told me, you're always going to be the bad guy in their narrative. The question is whether you want to be the bad guy with an extra $2,200 in your bank account or without it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through scenarios in my head, imagining the fallout if I refused versus the resentment I'd feel if I agreed. Around 2 a.m., I heard soft footsteps and looked up to see Logan standing in my doorway, rubbing his eyes. Mom? Why are you crying? I hadn't even realized there were tears on my cheeks. I quickly wiped them away and patted the bed beside me, just thinking about some grown-up stuff. What are you doing up, buddy? He climbed in next to me, his small body warm against mine. I heard you walking around. Are you sad? Looking at his concerned little face, something clicked into place. This child, this kind, perceptive, wonderful child, was watching how I handled conflict and unfairness. What lesson did I want to teach him? I was sad, I admitted. Sometimes people ask us to do things that don't feel right, and it's hard to know what to do. Like when Jackson wanted me to let him copy my math test? Exactly like that. I smiled, once again impressed by his understanding. And what did you decide to do? I said no, because it wasn't fair, even though he got mad at me. That was brave of you. He was quiet for a moment, then asked, Did you say no to the thing that doesn't feel right? I'm going to, I told him. The decision suddenly crystal clear. I'm going to stand up for what feels fair, even if people get mad at me. He nodded solemnly. That's what you always tell me to do. As Logan drifted back to sleep beside me, I mentally rehearsed the conversation I would have with my mother the next day. For the first time in my life, I felt absolutely certain about setting a boundary with my family, not just for myself, but for the child watching and learning from my example. The next morning, after dropping Logan at school, I sat in my car in the parking lot and called my mother. My hands were steady, my mind clear. Years of giving in, of accepting less than we deserved, had culminated in this moment of resolve. She answered on the third ring. Stephanie? I didn't expect to hear from you so soon. I've been thinking about Noah's graduation party and the contribution you've asked for, I began, keeping my voice calm and measured. I want to be clear about something first. I'm genuinely happy for Noah's achievement. Getting an MBA with honors is something to be proud of. Yes, it certainly is, my mother agreed, sounding pleased with my apparent cooperation. However, I continued, I've decided I won't be contributing $2,200 toward the celebration. The silence on the other end was heavy. When she finally spoke, her voice had cooled considerably. I see. And may I ask why not? I think you know why, Mom. For years, I've watched the disparity in how you and Dad treat Noah versus how you treat me and Logan. The birthday party was just the most recent example. Oh, for heaven's sake. Are we back to that again? I thought we'd moved past. We haven't moved past it because you've never acknowledged how hurtful it was, I interrupted, surprising myself with my firmness. Logan is your grandson, your only grandchild, and you chose to skip his birthday for a regular season baseball game. Then you called it just a child's party, as if his feelings don't matter. That's not what I meant and you know it, she protested. And this isn't about Logan's birthday. This is about supporting your brother's achievement. It's about both, I insisted. It's about the pattern that's existed our entire lives. Noah's needs and wants always come first. His achievements are celebrated extravagantly while mine were barely acknowledged. And now you're continuing that pattern with Logan. That's simply not true. We love you and Logan. You're being oversensitive as usual. I took a deep breath, refusing to be derailed. What I'm being is honest, and I'm setting a boundary. I will not contribute $2,200 to this party. I could hear her frustration building. Let me get your father. There was muffled conversation, and then my father's gruff voice came on the line. Stephanie, what's this about you refusing to help with Noah's graduation? After everything we've done for you? Dad, I'm a 34-year-old single mother who works full-time as a nurse. I put myself through school, I've raised Logan with minimal help, and I've built a life for us. What exactly have you done that entitles you to $2,200 of my hard-earned money? My bluntness clearly shocked him. We're your parents. We raised you, put a roof over your head, fed you, and now your brother has achieved something significant, and you won't even help celebrate it? This is pure jealousy talking. This isn't jealousy, Dad. This is me finally recognizing an unhealthy pattern and refusing to participate in it anymore. So that's it? You're just going to abandon your family obligations because of some perceived slight? I'm not abandoning anything. I'm just not blindly giving in to demands that don't respect my own financial situation or the years of imbalance in how this family operates. The conversation deteriorated from there, with accusations of selfishness and ingratitude from both parents. I remained calm, repeating my position without allowing their emotional tactics to sway me. When I finally hung up, I felt simultaneously drained and empowered. That evening, after talking it through with Taylor, I made a decision that would either bring the entire issue to a head or end our family relationship altogether. I would send a contribution to Noah's graduation party, exactly $1. The symbolism was perfect. $1 wasn't nothing. It acknowledged the event and my connection to it. But it was also clearly not the amount requested, making my point about boundaries and respect impossible to ignore. I crafted a simple note to accompany the dollar. Congratulations on your MBA, Noah. This is what I can contribute given our family's history of reciprocity. Wishing you success in your future endeavors. Stephanie and Logan. The next day, I stopped at the bank and asked specifically for a crisp, new $1 bill. The teller gave me a curious look, but complied without comment. I carefully placed the bill in a graduation card, included my note, and addressed the envelope to my parents' house, where I knew they were collecting all the family contributions. As I dropped the envelope in the mailbox, I felt a strange mix of anxiety and liberation. There would be fallout, certainly. My parents would be furious. Noah might be hurt or confused. Extended family would likely hear a distorted version of events that cast me as the villain. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't making a decision based on avoiding their disapproval. I was standing firm in my own worth and teaching Logan a valuable lesson about self-respect in the process. Back at home, I preemptively blocked my parents' and Noah's numbers on my phone. Not permanently, just for a few days to give myself space from the inevitable explosion. I needed time to strengthen my resolve before facing their reaction. That evening, Logan and I had dinner with Taylor, who raised her glass in a mock toast when I told her what I'd done. "To your first dollar of self-respect," she said with a grin. "May it be worth more than the thousands they wanted." Later, as I was tucking Logan into bed, he asked about the conversation I'd had with his grandparents. "Did they get mad when you stood up for what's fair?" "They did," I admitted, believing in honest, age-appropriate conversations. Sometimes when people are used to getting their way, they get upset when things change. He thought about this for a moment. Like when Tommy had to tell the big kids to stop taking his lunch money? They got really mad at first and called him names. I was continually amazed by his insight. "That's a really good comparison. What happened with Tommy after that?" "The teachers found out and made the big kids stop. And then other kids weren't scared to stand up to them anymore." He yawned widely. "Tommy says now they don't bother anybody because they know people won't let them." "That's exactly right," I said, kissing his forehead. "Sometimes you have to be the first person to say no, even though it's scary." As I turned out his light, I realized I wasn't just teaching Logan about boundaries, he was teaching me too. The straightforward wisdom of children often cuts through the complicated justifications adults make for dysfunctional behavior. In Logan's world, taking someone's lunch money was clearly wrong, regardless of who was doing it or what excuses they made. In the adult world, the same principle applied to my family's emotional manipulation, even if the dynamics were more complex. They had been taking pieces of my self-worth for years, and I had finally said, "No more." The dollar had been sent. Now we would wait for the response, knowing whatever came next, we would face it together, mother and son, standing firm in our worth. The response to my $1 contribution was swift and explosive. 3 days after sending it, I cautiously unblocked my family's numbers. Within minutes, my phone began buzzing with notifications of missed calls, voicemails, and text messages. My mother had left 4 voicemails, each progressively more heated. The first was shock. "Stephanie, please tell me this is some kind of mistake. $1? Call me immediately." By the 4th, she had worked herself into righteous indignation. "I have never been so humiliated in my entire life. Your father showed that card to me in front of Aunt Susan. $1 and that nasty little note? After everything we've done for you? This level of disrespect is unforgivable, Stephanie. Absolutely unforgivable." My father's texts were brief but cutting. "Extremely disappointed in your behavior. This disrespect to the family will not be tolerated." And later, "Your mother is in tears. I hope you're satisfied with yourself." Noah, who rarely initiated contact with me, sent a lengthy text. "What the hell, Steph? Mom showed me your contribution and note. Is this some kind of joke? You're literally ruining what should be a special time for me. I've always stood up for you when Mom and Dad complained about your attitude, but this is beyond petty. If you have issues with them, fine, but don't drag me into it. This is my graduation you're messing with." I sat on my couch reading through the messages, a strange calm settling over me. The accusations and guilt trips that would have devastated me months ago now seemed transparent and predictable. I could see the manipulation for what it was, attempts to control my behavior through shame and obligation, rather than respect and understanding. More messages flooded in throughout the day. My Aunt Susan called, her voice gentle but probing, as she tried to understand what on earth possessed you to send just $1, Stephanie. My cousin Emily texted to say she'd heard about the situation and offered to mediate if I wanted to talk things through with my parents. My father's brother, Uncle Robert, left a gruff voicemail suggesting I stop this nonsense and apologize to your mother before this gets any worse. The family grapevine was clearly in full effect. I wondered what version of events they were hearing. Knowing my mother, It was likely heavily edited to paint me as ungrateful and spiteful, rather than someone finally establishing healthy boundaries after years of unequal treatment. Rather than engage with the barrage of messages, I turned off my phone for the remainder of the day. Logan and I had planned a movie night, and I was determined not to let family drama overshadow our time together. The next morning, I checked my messages again to find my mother had sent a lengthy email overnight. The subject line read, "Family Expectations," all caps for emphasis. The content was essentially a history of everything she and my father had ever done for me, from sacrificing to give you dance lessons when you were young. I took 3 months of lessons before they decided it was too expensive, to supporting you emotionally during your pregnancy, a creative rewriting of history that bore no resemblance to reality. The email concluded with what amounted to an ultimatum. If you cannot show proper gratitude and respect for this family, perhaps it's best we take some time apart. Your attitude has always been difficult, Stephanie, but this latest behavior crosses a line. The ball is in your court. I read it twice, noticing how she'd framed the entire situation as my failing, my attitude, my ingratitude, with no acknowledgement of the patterns I'd tried to address. The threat of taking time apart was particularly ironic, given that we'd already been doing just that for months, with little apparent concern on their part. I closed the email without replying. The ball in my court metaphor suggested I was supposed to serve next, likely with a groveling apology and the full $2,200. I had no intention of doing either. Later that morning, Taylor came by with a care package, gourmet coffee, bath bombs, and chocolate chip cookies she'd baked herself. "Reinforcements for the siege," she said with a grim smile. "How did you know?" I asked, ushering her inside. Logan texted me from his iPad. She held up her phone, showing a message. "Aunt Taylor, Mom's phone keeps making angry noises. I think she needs cookies and hugs." I couldn't help laughing despite everything. "He's something else, isn't he?" "That kid is wiser than most adults I know," Taylor agreed, setting the care package on my kitchen counter. "So, give me the damage report." I showed her some of the messages, and she shook her head in disbelief. "They really don't get it, do they?" "Not even a little bit." "They don't want to get it," I replied. "Understanding would require acknowledging the favoritism, and that's not something they're willing to do." The fallout continued over the following days. My mother posted vague but pointed comments on social media about ungrateful children and the importance of family respect. Several relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly felt compelled to reach out with their opinions on the situation. Then came the most hurtful blow. A large manila envelope arrived in the mail with no return address. Inside was the graduation invitation I'd received weeks earlier, now with the word "uninvited" scrawled across it in angry red marker. Unfortunately, Logan found the envelope before I could dispose of it. "Mom, what does this mean?" he asked, holding up the defaced invitation. I took a deep breath, guiding him to sit beside me on the couch. "It means that Grandma and Grandpa are very upset with me right now, and they don't want us to come to Uncle Noah's graduation party." His brow furrowed. "Because you only sent $1? That's part of it," I acknowledged. "But it's more complicated than that. It's about a lot of things that have happened over many years." He thought for a moment. "Are you sad?" "A little," I admitted. "It's never nice when family is angry with you. But I also believe I did the right thing by standing up for what's fair." "Like Tommy," he nodded sagely. "Exactly like Tommy," I agreed, pulling him into a hug. "Sometimes doing the right thing has hard consequences, but that doesn't mean we should avoid doing it." Seeing the defaced invitation awakened a fierce protective instinct in me. My parents could be angry with me all they wanted, but involving Logan, letting him see their pettiness and spite, crossed a line. I decided then that we would do something special on the weekend of Noah's graduation party, something joyful and positive that would create happy memories instead of bitter ones. "How would you feel about a beach trip?" I asked Logan. "We could go to Ocean City for the weekend, build sandcastles, swim in the ocean." His eyes lit up immediately. "Really? Can Taylor come too? And maybe Mia and Emma?" "That's a great idea," I told him. "A weekend with people who really care about us." As I started planning our alternative weekend, I received a surprising message. My cousin Emily, who I'd always been friendly with but never particularly close to, sent a private text. "Hey Steph, I heard about everything going on. For what it's worth, I think Aunt Margaret and Uncle Richard are being unfair. They did the same thing to my sister Sarah for years, always comparing us, always making her feel less than. I contributed to Noah's party because it was easier than dealing with the drama, but I respect you for taking a stand. Let me know if you need anything." Her message was a revelation. I'd always assumed I was the only one who noticed or experienced the favoritism in our family. Knowing that others had seen it too, had felt its effects, was both validating and saddening. Other small acts of support emerged. My childhood friend Rachel, who still lived in my hometown and occasionally saw my parents, called to check on me after hearing gossip at the local grocery store. "Your mom's telling everyone who'll listen that you've abandoned the family," she reported. "But anyone who knows you knows that's ridiculous." These connections reminded me that even in the midst of family rejection, I wasn't alone. There were people who saw me clearly and valued me, not despite my boundaries, but because of the strength and self-respect they represented. As the graduation weekend approached, the messages from my family dwindled. Perhaps they'd realized their pressure tactics weren't working, or perhaps they'd simply decided I was a lost cause. Either way, the silence was a relief after the barrage of guilt and accusations. I still hadn't heard directly from Noah since his initial angry text. Part of me wondered if he truly understood what was happening, or if he was simply absorbing our parents' narrative without question. Despite everything, I didn't want to lose my relationship with my brother entirely. But any reconciliation would need to be based on mutual respect, not on me continuing to accept second-class status in the family hierarchy. The night before we were to leave for our beach weekend, I wrote a brief email to Noah. "Congratulations on your graduation. Despite everything that's happened, I want you to know I'm proud of your achievement. I hope someday we can talk honestly about the family dynamics that have brought us to this point. Until then, I wish you well in your future endeavors." I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one. But sending it felt right, a way of acknowledging his accomplishment while still maintaining the boundary I'd established. The $1 gesture had made its point. Now it was time to move forward, focusing on the healthy relationships in our lives rather than the dysfunctional ones. Ocean City welcomed us with perfect weather, clear blue skies, gentle breezes, and temperatures warm enough for swimming, but not so hot as to be uncomfortable. Logan bounded out of the car when we arrived at our modest beachfront hotel, eager to feel the sand between his toes. "Mom, look how big the ocean is!" he exclaimed, though it was hardly his first time seeing it. His excitement was contagious, and I felt the tension of the past weeks begin to dissolve as we settled into our weekend getaway. Taylor arrived an hour later, followed by Mia and Emma. We spent the first afternoon building an elaborate sandcastle complex that Logan declared was way better than any boring old graduation party. The adults exchanged knowing smiles over his head, touched by his loyalty, and relieved that he seemed completely unbothered by what we were missing back home. That evening, as the kids collected shells along the shoreline with Mia supervising, Taylor and I sat on beach towels watching the sunset. "Penny for your thoughts," Taylor said, noticing my pensive expression. "I was just thinking about what's happening right now at the Riverside Hotel," I admitted. "The party's probably in full swing. Having regrets?" I considered the question seriously. "No, not regrets exactly, just wondering what a normal, healthy family would feel like. The kind where achievements are celebrated equally, where love isn't conditional on compliance." Taylor squeezed my hand. "For what it's worth, I think you're building that healthy family right now. It just doesn't include the people you're related to by blood." Looking at Logan laughing as he raced Emma to the water's edge, I knew she was right. We were creating our own definition of family, one based on consistent love, mutual respect, and genuine care. That night, after everyone had retired to their rooms and Logan was fast asleep, I checked social media almost without thinking. There they were, photos from Noah's graduation celebration tagged by various relatives. The Riverside Hotel banquet room decorated lavishly, My brother in his graduation cap, my parents beaming proudly beside him, Aunt Susan, Uncle Robert, cousins I barely spoke to anymore, all dressed up and celebrating. I zoomed in on my parents' faces, searching for what? Sadness at my absence? Some sign that they missed Logan and me? There was nothing but smiles as they posed with their golden child. Strangely, the photos didn't hurt as I'd expected them to. Instead, I felt a kind of clarity. The party would have cost thousands of dollars, money my parents apparently had no trouble spending on Noah, while balking at contributing even minimally to Logan's modest birthday celebration. The disparity was so obvious, so undeniable, that I couldn't understand how I'd normalized it for so long. My $1 had been worth far more than $2,200 would have been. It had bought me the courage to see the situation clearly and the freedom to stop participating in dynamics that diminished my worth and my son's. The next morning, I was surprised to see a text from Noah. Got your email. The party was fine. Jessica, my girlfriend, asked why you weren't there, and I told her what happened. She had some interesting perspectives I hadn't considered. Maybe we can talk when things cool down. It wasn't much, but it was the first message from any family member that didn't contain accusations or demands. A tiny opening, perhaps, for an eventual conversation. I showed Taylor the message over breakfast. What do you think? Genuine or another manipulation tactic? She considered it carefully. Hard to say, but this Jessica person sounds like she might have some sense. Maybe she's helping him see things differently. I nodded, not getting my hopes up but allowing for the possibility that something positive might eventually emerge from the conflict. Our second day at the beach was even better than the first. We built sandcastles, swam until we were exhausted, and enjoyed ice cream cones that dripped down our hands in the afternoon sundae. I took dozens of photos, wanting to preserve these moments of pure joy. That evening, Logan asked me a question I wasn't expecting. Mom, are you sad we're not at Uncle Noah's party? Not at all, I told him honestly. I'm exactly where I want to be, with exactly the people I want to be with. He nodded, satisfied. Me too. This is way better than a boring grown-up party. It sure is, buddy. I ruffled his hair. It sure is. On our final morning, as we packed to head home, I posted some of our beach photos on social media with the simple caption, "Weekend with our chosen family." It wasn't meant as a statement or provocation, just an honest expression of gratitude for the people who consistently showed up for us. The drive home gave me time to reflect on everything that had happened since that fateful phone call demanding $2,200. Dr. Martinez, my therapist whom I'd been seeing sporadically for years, had often talked about transformative boundaries, NIT, limits that not only protect you from others' inappropriate demands, but actually transform how you see yourself and your relationships. My $1 contribution had been exactly that, a transformative boundary that had clarified the reality of my family dynamics in a way years of therapy had not fully accomplished. The money that would have gone toward Noah's party was still in my savings account, now earmarked for a special family vacation for Logan and me next summer. From obligation to opportunity, another transformation. As we pulled into our apartment complex, I felt a sense of coming home that extended beyond the physical building. I was coming home to myself, to the knowledge that I was enough, that Logan and I deserved respect, and that we had the power to create the family life we wanted, regardless of biology. I knew that my parents might never change their perspective. They might continue to view me as difficult, ungrateful, the problem child who wouldn't fall in line. That knowledge still carried some pain, but it no longer defined me. I had stopped measuring my worth by their approval, and in doing so, had discovered just how valuable I truly was. 3 months passed quietly. Summer arrived in full force, bringing with it the rhythm of longer days, Logan's summer camp adventures, and peaceful evenings on our small apartment balcony, where we'd started growing herbs in colorful pots. Then one day in mid-July, my phone buzzed with a text from Noah. I'm in town for a job interview tomorrow. Any chance you'd be up for coffee? Just us. I stared at the message for a long moment, conflicting emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to decline, to maintain the peaceful distance I'd established. But another part was curious about this unexpected outreach. After careful consideration, I replied, "Coffee works." Green Bean Cafe at 2 p.m.? It was a public place where we could have a conversation without pressure, and the timing meant Logan would still be at summer camp. "See you then?" came the simple response. The next day, I arrived at the cafe early, selecting a table near the window but away from the main flow of customers. When Noah walked in, I was struck by how simultaneously familiar and foreign he seemed. My younger brother, yet almost a stranger after months of minimal contact. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from me. He looked good, confident in his interview suit, but with a hesitancy in his expression I wasn't accustomed to seeing. "Hey yourself," I replied. "Interview went well?" "Think so. It's for a consulting position downtown." He fiddled with a sugar packet. "Listen, Stephanie, I didn't ask to meet just for small talk. I figured as much." He took a deep breath. After the whole graduation party situation, Jessica had a lot of questions about our family. She comes from this really close, supportive family where everyone's treated equally, and she couldn't understand why my sister would send $1 to my graduation party. I stayed silent, waiting. So I started explaining about how you've always been difficult, how you're jealous of my relationship with mom and dad. He looked up, meeting my eyes, and she called bullshit on all of it. That surprised me. She did? Yeah. She pointed out a bunch of things I'd told her over time, like how mom and dad paid for my entire education but you worked through college, how they come to all my games but missed Logan's birthday for one of them. When she laid it all out like that, he shrugged uncomfortably. It made me think. The admission hung between us, fragile and unexpected. "I'm not saying I agree with the $1 thing," he clarified quickly. "That was pretty harsh. But maybe I understand a little better why you did it." It wasn't an apology, but it was more self-awareness than I'd ever heard from my brother. "I appreciate you saying that, Noah." We talked for nearly 2 hours, slowly navigating the complicated terrain of our shared history, but different experiences. For the first time, Noah seemed genuinely interested in my perspective rather than dismissing it as oversensitivity or jealousy. When I described how it felt to have my parents skip Logan's birthday for his baseball game, I saw real discomfort on his face. "I didn't even think about it from Logan's perspective," he admitted. "It was just a regular game. I would have understood if they'd gone to his party instead." "That means a lot to hear," I told him. As our conversation wound down, Noah asked, "How is the little guy, anyway?" "He's great, loving summer camp, growing like a weed. He's at the dinosaur phase now. Knows the name of every prehistoric creature that ever existed, apparently." Noah smiled. "Think he'd be up for getting ice cream with his uncle sometime? I'd like to get to know him better." The request was unexpected but welcome. "I think he'd like that." "But Noah..." I hesitated, then pushed forward. "I need to be clear about something. If you want a relationship with Logan, it needs to be consistent. He's had enough disappointment from family members who show up when it's convenient and disappear when it's not." My brother nodded slowly. "That's fair. I can commit to that." 2 weeks later, Noah met us at the local ice cream parlor. Logan was initially shy, hiding partially behind me as he sized up the uncle he barely knew. But Noah had come prepared, bringing a small dinosaur figurine that immediately broke the ice. "Your mom tells me you're the dinosaur expert," Noah said as Logan examined the Triceratops. "Maybe you can teach me about them sometime." Logan launched into a detailed explanation of the Cretaceous period, and I watched as my brother listened with genuine interest, asking questions and engaging fully with his nephew. It was a small step, but a meaningful one. As for my parents, things remained distant. Noah had mentioned they were still hurt and angry about the dollar incident, as it had become known in family lore. I wasn't surprised, nor was I particularly troubled by their continued disapproval. I had made peace with the possibility that they might never acknowledge the favoritism or change their behavior. "Mom still asks if I've heard from you," Noah admitted during one of our now regular coffee meetups. "I think she's waiting for you to apologize." "I'm not going to," I said simply. "I've spent my whole life apologizing for taking up space in that family." I'm done with that. He nodded, no longer arguing the point. Jessica thinks they might come around eventually, when they realize you're serious about the boundaries. Maybe, I said, not holding my breath. But I'm okay either way now, and I genuinely was. The summer passed in a blur of work, playdates, and weekend adventures with our chosen family. Taylor officially became Logan's godmother in a small ceremony at the local park, formalizing the role she'd already been playing in his life. My supervisor at work followed through on her suggestion about the charge nurse position, recommending me for a promotion that came with better hours and a significant pay increase. You've shown exceptional leadership and judgment this past year, she told me during the interview. Particularly in difficult situations. Logan thrived too. Without the undercurrent of tension that had previously surfaced around family visits and disappointments, he seemed more confident, more secure. We started a new tradition called Family Choice Day. Once a month, Logan would choose an adventure for us and our chosen family members to enjoy together. Dr. Martinez, during one of our sessions, noted the change in me. You've stopped seeking validation from sources unlikely to provide it, she observed. That's significant progress. One rainy afternoon while Logan was at a friend's house, I sat at our kitchen table and wrote a letter to my parents that I knew I would never send. I poured everything into it, the hurt of growing up as the less favored child, the pain of watching history repeat itself with Logan, the freedom I'd found in finally acknowledging and naming the dynamics that had shaped our family. When I finished writing, I didn't feel anger or resentment. Instead, I felt a profound sense of release. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in my journal. The act of articulating my truth had been for me, not for them. As Logan's 9th birthday approached, we began planning his party, a dinosaur-themed celebration at the Natural History Museum. When I asked who he wanted to invite, he listed his friends from school, Taylor, Mia, and Emma, the Rodriguezes, and, to my surprise, Uncle Noah, if he wants to come. Would you like to invite Grandma and Grandpa too? I asked carefully, wanting to follow his lead. He thought about it seriously, then shook his head. Not this time. Maybe when they learn to show up, out of the mouths of babes, indeed. The journey from that $1 statement to this place of peaceful resolution hadn't been easy. There had been tears, doubts, and difficult conversations. But looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. That single dollar had been an investment in our self-worth, in teaching my son to value himself and expect respect from others. Some might see our smaller, chosen family as a loss, compared to the extended biological connections we'd stepped back from. But I saw it differently. We had exchanged quantity for quality, obligation for genuine connection, conditional approval for unconditional love. As Logan and I finalized his birthday invitations one evening, he looked up at me with those perceptive eyes of his. "Mom, I'm glad we have our kind of family, even if it's not like other people's." "Me too, buddy," I replied, my heart full. Sometimes the family you choose is the greatest gift of all. So if you're watching this and struggling with similar family dynamics, remember, your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand firm in your value, even when it costs you relationships you thought you needed. And sometimes, a single dollar can be worth more than thousands when it represents your self-respect. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? What helped you find the courage? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more honest conversations about family, boundaries, and creating the life you deserve. Thank you for being part of my chosen family here in this digital space. Until next time, remember that you're worth so much more than you've been told.